Guys, welcome back to Astoldbypala. Before I get started in today's blog post, I just wanted to share a short poem that directly relates to the topic at hand that I'll be discussing today. So, without further ado, the poem's entitled Diaspora Blues. So here I am, too foreign for here, too foreign for home, not enough for both. The reason why I'm sharing this poem is because lately I've been having diaspora blues. As most of you will know, I just came back from Sweden, and I've been at home for holidays, and I'm now getting ready to move again so I can continue with my medical pursuits. That said, this time around, I am starting to feel the fatigue of packing up, leaving, and rebuilding a new life. It doesn't feel the same as it normally does, and I think it's just catching up with me, And so that's one of the things that I wanted to discuss today because I'm sure there's a lot of people that will relate to this post, whether you've moved to a new country, whether you've studied in a new country as an international student like me, or whether you've moved there as an expatriate with work, or maybe your parents always moved constantly with work. So I hope you enjoyed this one. All right, let's get into it. Okay, guys, so I think I'm going to break this down into cons and then I'll go to the pros. Yeah, and then I'll just summarize or sum up everything at the end. So, starting with the cons. Boo! Packing. Okay? Packing. As an international student, I only get to come back home once a year for vacations, which means I have to pack my entire life into a suitcase that has a 23 kg weight limitation. For me, that's just impossible. And I really have tried to pack lightly. I just can't do it. I'm just a chronic overpacker. And honestly, I think airlines need to be more supportive to us people because it's like, come on, man. Most of us here are students, or at least they should have a plan for students because most students, it's already expensive for them to go abroad and study and then to come home, buying a ticket to come home to visit family. And then on top of that, you now have them always paying for extra luggage. So I'm just like, oh, can a girl get a break? So yeah, that is my first pet peeve when it comes to being a international student or a person of diaspora. Guys, okay, so the next con I'm going to be talking about is legal limitations. I think one thing you don't realize as much when you're living in your own country is how much freedom you have to everything. So when you move to another country and you're legally limited to a lot of things, you start to realize like, wow, I'm a second citizen. I'm definitely not a person of this country. One thing that I can say was important in the US is Social Security. But before I talk about Social Security, let me just break down how the US worked. US, I would say, generally had three tiers. I would say it was citizen, green card holders who are permanent residents, and then temporary permanent residents who are like international students such as myself, and maybe foreign workers who are on a work permit. So as an international student, I could not work outside of school. Yeah, and in order for me to work even at school, I had to file an application with Employment Services, and Employment Services required me to get Social Security. So I had to go through this process of getting Social Security. Most people have Social Security in America. It's just natural to file for it. It's like an ID card, filing for your natural, your national, sorry, not your natural, your national ID card. You just do it when the time comes. So I had to figure out the process on how to do this, and it worked out. I managed to do it, but I definitely did it on my own, and I can confidently say maybe 95% of my international friends never got a Social Security card. Here's the thing though, with a Social Security card, apart from the fact that it helps you get work, as a pre-med, I had to do volunteering and I shadowed doctors. And in order for me to be around patients, I needed to get background checks, I needed to get a criminal record check, and I needed to get a child abuse clearance. And I needed my social security number to get that stuff done. So it definitely limits you if you do not get all of these steps done. And sometimes I feel like the process is not made clear enough for people or for foreigners who come into a country. And it can be a big barrier because, even now I say in Philly, once I got these clearances, I was at least able to do research and I was at least able to shadow doctors. It worked out. In New York, New York had different laws, and I would say 80% of the hospitals in New York, even with all these clearances and with my social security, did not allow me to have direct patient contact. Not even clinical research was I allowed to partake in. I had to do like admin work, or I had to be in a in a bench lab. So nothing with you know physical contact with people. So yeah, there's always barriers when you're an international person. Um, that said, the other thing that I encountered, even having a social security number, which is supposed to help you get a credit score, I had no credit history. So I couldn't rent when I moved to New York. I had to get my aunt to sign off on my lease because I had no credit history. And even though I had a social security number and I was now a person, a legal person, they're recognized by the country, I didn't have a credit score or a credit history, which I find so interesting because in my country, it's always a good thing when you don't have a history of having been in debt. But in the US, it's different. They want to see that you've had that, debt in your past and you have paid it off. So that was something that I had to learn, and it was definitely something new for me and a barrier in a sense. In Sweden had something similar to the US. It was called a Personnot number, and with that, I couldn't access healthcare. So in the US, at least, I could sign up for private health insurer, and I was covered, and I could go to the doctor, and I could go to a hospital and get procedures done, and I would just pay a copay. As pricey as the US is, it was still doable. In Sweden's a socialist country, so all their citizens are covered by health insurance. Unfortunately, if you are living within the first year and a half of being in Sweden, you don't get a personal number. You get it after living in Sweden for a year and a half. So for that first year and a half, basically don't get sick, don't break a leg, don't get hit by a car, because if you do, you're paying a shitload out of pocket. So thank God I finished my master's degree without any problems. But yeah, it's a pretty scary thing. And another thing that I couldn't do without my personal number is open up a bank account in Sweden. So I had to keep my old bank accounts, and I'm pretty sure I racked up a lot of international fee costs. So that definitely sucks. And again, this all just comes down to the fact that I feel like governments need to make more policies that cater to international students, especially in a country like the US. The US is a country that's very attractive to many foreigners. People see America on TV and they're like, I want to go and study in America. So if you have international students coming into your country and they're paying twice as much as your own citizens, your policies need to take them into serious consideration. And I just feel like if somebody can't even get a part-time job in a cafe, like I understand maybe you don't want students coming there and then working maybe for like a investment banking group, and they're making a lot of money dealing on Wall Street or something, and then they decide they don't want to go to school anymore, they're just going to work, and then they're an illegal immigrant, fast forward. That I understand, but there's certain jobs where it's like, okay, a waitress in a cafe, I really can't be a waitress in the cafe. Like, you really think I'm going to stop doing my my MBA so I can be a waitress for the rest of my life? So I think some things need to have exceptions and they need to be less red taped. Yeah, so that said, one of the other things that I really, really was disappointed in the US was their medical school policies. So in the past, I believe international students used to go to the US and they used to get scholarships for med school, and then or loans, and they wouldn't pay them off by the time they were done. They would just leave the country. So med schools in the US changed it that they would not admit international students. Not all of them, but a good maybe 75% of them followed this rule of not admitting international students, including my school. I did research at Temple University's medical school. It was a great, beautiful facility, and I had so much fun there. But me coming out from my pre-med degree was not eligible to apply for med school at Temple. It was just not allowed because I was international. And so I found that to be really sad. And the fact that maybe the remaining 25% of schools within the US that did accept international students, out of a class of maybe 100 people being admitted, maybe only 5 of them would be international students. So, med school in the US is already really competitive, but it's even more so competitive when you're an international student. And so, I mean, that's already bad enough in itself. But here is really, the cherry on top of the cake. Those schools that do accept international students, I would say majority of them expect students to pay at least 2 years up front or all 4 years up front. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with tuition fees for medical students in the US, it is an arm and a leg. I'm talking about 60,000 US plus minus a year. So if you're asking me to pay 120,000 straight up cash money in the bank or 240,000, I just think that is just it's a policy that I don't understand, because I'm like, any normal American most likely could not pay that. So why would you, feel the need to tell foreigners that they have to do this? So yeah, I mean, I could understand if you said like, if you're not paying the second year tuition and you've been there the first year, then we'll pull you out of the program. Then it's like, okay, you're SOL because you didn't pay. But to say you have to pay 4 years in advance because there's been a history of other students who've never paid is just, I don't think it's very fair. So I hope certain policies will be changed. Although, if we get Trump, knock on wood, or if America gets Trump, I'm not America anymore. I have left. I love the country, but yeah, I will pray that they do not get Donald Trump, because it's gonna suck for international students and even legal, permanent residents and citizens that are naturalized or have a diaspora background. Okay, the next con, and probably the biggest con, and actually something that has brought me to this blog post today, is beginning again. When I say beginning again, I mean, you know, learning a new culture, learning a new way of life, learning a new language, making new friends, having to let go of the life that you once had, and, the things that you got used to, because if you stay stuck in the past, you're always going to compare your present to that past, and that past is gone, done, and dusted. You can't go back. And I think that's the biggest challenge when you're constantly moving. At least for me, that's something that I'm starting to notice. When I left Philadelphia, I had really, really good friends. I had a good set of friends, and I just thought, wow, like, these are my peoples. And, when I was leaving, I was like, this is going to be so sad. I'm going to have to find new peoples. And, when you leave, I think you leave with this, not only is it like, what does the future hold, but I want the next set of people I meet to be just like them, which is, I think, setting yourself up for disappointment, because, people are different, your experiences are going to be different. And that's just one thing that I think I have learned, but it's been, they have this word in Portuguese, saudade. It's kind of like a longing of a former life or something that has gone. And I think, but it's like a nostalgic, happy, loving thought. So I think that's how I feel about my experiences in previous countries, be it in Philly, be it in Sweden. My life in Sweden was very different from my life in Philly, but both, they were both really good experiences in their own unique way. So I think that's one thing. Just don't compare anything, and don't try to have one experience live up to another experience, um, another thing that I have to say is sad is that you will lose friends along the way, and that's a reality you have to realize. There are going to be friends that you will stay in contact with and you will talk to every day, and it'll feel like you never moved. There will be friends that you thought you would never stop talking to every day that you will stop talking to, but you will still have love for them in your heart. And if something were to happen, you might even buy a ticket to go and see them, and they'll always be in the back of your thought. I mean, the back of your thoughts. And then there are the friends you will just stop talking to, And not you'll forget about them, but you'll know in your heart of hearts, I'll maybe never see this person again. So it's a very sad reality. Like, nobody wants to think, oh, I'll never see this person again. You just kind of hope you will cross paths again. But it is a reality that you have to face, that maybe I'm going to continue to live out this lifetime and I will never see this person again. So I think that's where social media is great, because at least you continue to keep up with people's lives, even if you can't physically be with them. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, so now I have been feeling, is this fear of, it's, what do they call it? FOMO, fear of missing out. One of the things that I have constantly battled with is when I come home, it's a good time and I enjoy being home. But then there's, in the back of my mind, it's kind of like, this is only for a limited time. It's going to expire and I'm going to leave. And not everybody's going to forget that I was here, but life will continue to go on without me. And it's like, I know I'm away living my life, so I don't know why I would expect people back home's lives to kind of stay stagnant while I'm not there. But it's the realization of coming home that everybody's been living their lives and life is going on without you. That's really like, wow, it hits home. And it makes you wonder also about the future. Like for me, I want to come and move back to my country when I'm done with all my medical training, including specialization. I want to live in Namibia and I want to raise my kids there. I've said this time and time again. But then I think about it and I'm like, it's going to be sad, because people who have stayed at home, they're going to have strong friendship connection bonds, strong networking bonds, whereas I will not have that. And that's going to be my Achilles heel, that I'm going to basically have to start a life from scratch again when I am from this country. So it's a sad reality. Yeah, so I think one of the things that I realized when I was home was that there's a lot of people that I'd actually forgotten from my previous life. Like, I'd run into people when I'm out and I'm like, wait, his face looks really familiar, and then we'll chat and I'll be like, oh my god, I remember who you are. So it's bittersweet in the sense that you realize that this was really a different life that's now gone, but it's also sweet in the sense that it is still home and that you can always retrace your steps to a certain extent. So I think that's my biggest thing that I'm now dealing with right now. And I will tell you guys this. One of the things that I'm planning to do is my clinical electives next year is back home. So maybe I will vlog those in my attempt to start, I guess, getting back to my roots and, just replanting my roots at home, because I think I've been away from home so long and in this foreign diaspora. So, time for the pros. We've had all these cons. So, what about the pros? Well, there's definitely pros. The first being that although I love my family and I love spending time at home with my friends and life is good in Namibia, it can get very monotonous. So, I feel like traveling, it opens up this whole new world. You get to experience new cultures, new people, and you do things in your life that you would never ordinarily do if you just lived out your entire life at home or in your home country. So I do recommend that everybody travel, even if they can't move necessarily. I think traveling is such an important thing, because not only is it new experiences, you meet different people and you get different outlooks on life. And I think it makes you more of a well rounded person, and it makes you also become more of your own person, because I think sometimes when you grow around, not grow, yeah, when you grow around people that you've always been around, you tend it to become very similar and it's very easy to conform. But when you experience so many different things, you start kind of thinking outside of the box and you can take away what you want to be and create yourself. In the words of Meredith Grey, decide if you want to be more considerate, if you want to be more courageous, breathe in and decide. And I think that's something when you are part of a diaspora, you get to move. And when you move to this new country and you take in these new cultures, it is a new chance to decide what your new life should entail. So that's actually a second pro that I want to point out. It's a clean slate. When you move, you restart your life. It's almost like a restart button. And you get to be a better person if you maybe weren't happy with the life you were living before, then you can improve on what is missing in your life that you think would make you happier. So that's one thing. The other thing is that apart from it being a clean slate, it is also an opportunity for you to take in more experiences. I say life is for living, and every time you move and you start a new chapter, you take in a whole new world. So I think it's also a new chapter to a book, and it's a very deep, rich chapter at that. So those are my two pros. Third pro is you will have so many homes away from home. So if you ever want to travel and go on vacation, you'll know people that you can stay with, and you will know places pretty well. Um, you'll be very familiar with the culture, and you'll learn new languages. And apart from that, like for instance, Europe. I love that Europe is the way it is because you can travel to so many different countries because they're so tiny. The countries are so tiny and they're so close by that you skip over 2 hours and you're already in a completely new country. Whereas in Africa, you can't do that. You have to drive like for 10 hours before you're in a new country or something. So I like that about Europe because it's easy access to traveling and to different worldly cultures. Those are my two major pros. My last pro is that when you go away, sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm missing out on something. But there's also a reason that you feel you need to go and expand your horizons. And I have to say, one of the reasons I feel the need to leave home is because I want to come back and do something special and unique and out of this world. And I think that is a pro of leaving home because you come with a completely new perspective and you have something to contribute that nobody else has to contribute. So I think that's a major pro, and I think also it is an advantage to have, whether you're staying in your home country or you're going somewhere, knowing that you have the capability to not only pack up your life and recreate a new life, but the fact that you will be learning from different cultures and you can bring that back and apply it to your final life, whatever you choose to do. So those are my three main pros. Um, Also, of course, food. Getting to try new food. Um, yeah. Shopping, different cultures, music. There's so much. I mean, you can think about what you would do in a vacation, getting to see new places. Those are minor pros, but I would say the three main pros are the ones that I just discussed in detail. So that is what it's like to be part of this diaspora community. I just want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you have any comments, maybe you're part of this diaspora community, be it as an international student or be it as a expatriate working in another country, or maybe you're married to somebody from a foreign country and you immigrated to that country, or maybe your parents traveled a lot when you were younger and so you lived in different countries. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. Feel free to comment and share your experiences. I would love to hear them, and I'm sure everybody else would like to have a discussion around it because I think we all have very different experiences. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube page for my next vlog post, which is actually my 10th vlog post. Yes, the big 10. And to like my Instagram account, which is astoldbypala. You can find the information on my YouTube page, and also to follow me on Pinterest. My name is Pala. Also, again, you can find that information on my YouTube page. So until our next vlog post, take care, guys. Muchos love. Mwah.